Hello, welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin. Hello. And I am gearing up for my Activate Your Inner Healer retreat that is happening next week. Y'all getting back into routine after the holidays. I had the best holiday I've had probably in over a decade. And my boyfriend's mother gave me like, I don't know, like 25 gifts or something, and I got to like unwrap them. And the gifts, most of them were pretty small, but it just kind of brought me back to that sort of childhood awe and wonder of like, ooh, what's in the box? Ooh, what's in the bag? And I had an amazing time doing that. And then we did some karaoke, and we worked on puzzles and gingerbread houses, and so I was like really surrounded by love. It was a really beautiful holiday. So I hope that you guys are stepping into this new year surrounded by love, having a good experience, and I am here to help you kick it off right. So I am doing this retreat from January 16th to the 20th, which we still have a space or two left. So if you happen to listen to this podcast like tomorrow and want to join, then you can reach out to me, Erin at erincoach.com, and we can get you signed up. Today, I wanted to take some time to talk about some of the contents of that retreat. So, even if you're not attending, if you're like, yeah, no, I live nowhere near you, nor am I going to come and do that, cool, that's fine, I get it. You can listen to this podcast, it's always going to be free. But I wanted to impart some tools to you, which is kind of some of the stuff that I teach in person. So, many of you who have been listening to this podcast know about my clear formula. So, it's a way to take any problem that you have and find a solution. So, the CLEAR is an acronym for different words. So, C is circumstances, which circumstances are neutral. So, if you have a problem, you would describe the situation without too many adjectives and adverbs, and it would be, could be proven in a court of law. It's not exaggerated. It doesn't have all your thoughts and opinions and projections on it. It is flat. It is neutral. And for the most part, it's unexciting. Then, so that's C. L, we go to look at your thoughts. So this is where we interject all of our stuff. We bleh onto the circumstances. And you say, oh, well, they said it in a certain tone, or like, oh, it happened. They were going so fast. I don't know what was happening. Like, so all of our opinions and judgments happen in the thought line. So C, L, and then E is emotions. So emotions are vibrations within that are triggered by thoughts. So sometimes they're subconscious thoughts so that we're not aware of them, and you have 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day, which is a lot. And so a lot of times you're like, oh, I didn't even think anything, and what do I feel all this compartmentalized anxiety? Well, in the background, sort of like in the back quarter panel, you are having subconscious beliefs that are sort of like pushing out into the front and making you express in different ways, and your nervous system go as such. For example, like trauma lives in your tissues. That's why, if there was an experiment where there was a bell, and then every time the bell rang, like you were beat, a sort of a weird Pavlovian response, then every time you heard a bell ring, then you might like have that like reaction in your nervous system, just like if you smell cookies, like a lot of times you're salivating, or if you even think of a lemon, go on, I'll wait, think of a lemon. Did you start salivating? Yes. So this is the power of the mind on reaction in the body, and the sort of chemical cocktail that happens, which can be like hormone shifting, emotional responses, et cetera, et cetera. So your emotions lead to your actions, right? So we take an action or an inaction, and I count both of them as an action because it's a choice, right? So let's say that you feel anxiety, then you would have a certain action maybe, which is like, oh, I'm gonna like clean the house obsessively to burn off some of the crazy, as my one friend would say. She's like, I need you to go to the gym to burn off the crazy. And I was like, I like that, and I'm stealing it. Or inaction, which is also a choice, is when we withdraw, we shut down, we kind of like push the world away. So that's also kind of an action. It's a choice, regardless. Okay, and then our actions lead to our results. So our results are how things pan out in life, the sort of consequences for what happens from our actions. So the clear formula is something that I use. You can plug in any problem, and you can plug it in any line. Like, I don't know exactly what I'm thinking, but my main problem is I feel depressed. Okay, I have an emotion of depression. Okay, we're going to put that in as an emotion or emotional qualifier. And then when you sit with that feeling, that emotion of depression or sadness, what thought is causing that? So when you sit with it, it starts to become clear, and you're like, how do I act when I'm depressed? Well, I slump over like a crooked shrimp, and I don't look people in the eye, and I'm like Eeyore who lost his tail. I'm just bringing levity to the situation. But you can see how this formula helps you to sort it out so that you have it kind of out of your head and on paper. And then from there, you can say, okay, well, how do I want to feel? What do I want my results to be? What action do I want to take? And then you can sort of change the thought, and then you have a different result. So the clear formula is something that I'm teaching in this retreat because it is sort of a staple bread and butter of what I teach. And it's such an amazing tool that you can take with you. And I like to say that I am a huge, what's the word? I want to say influencer, but I don't think I'm an influencer. I want to say that I am a huge encourager of being your own self-healing advocate. And that's part of what I do is I empower people so that they can find and activate their own inner healer. And that's a huge part of this retreat, right? So clear formula. We're going to also do emotional processing, which sounds like, okay, emotional processing. I know what to do with my emotions. I feel them all the time. A lot of times people are not feeling their emotions, they are resisting them. So I can almost guarantee that most people, most of the time, are just resisting their emotions. There's an actual technique to where you can go inward and you can expand the area and allow like the sort of faculties of your body to almost digest the emotion, pull it apart so that you're like, oh, actually, I don't feel angry anymore. That's interesting. I usually feel angry almost all the time. And when you're able to like plug in and like recruit the faculties of your body and like kind of bring everything online, you learn how to almost disintegrate that emotion or transmute it into something different because it's all energy. So that's something that I teach. And then I teach my signature relationship toolbox where I talk about needs, talk about the 5 A's of adulting, which I did in a prior podcast, which just as a reminder, the 5 A's of adulting is how to be in healthy relationships with yourself and with others. And the 5 A's are attention, so bringing loving attention, accepting what is within. Once you accept, then you can offer affection. Once you offer affection, appreciation. And then once you do that, then you can allow. So give allowance to, not like a that kind of allowance, but like I have permission to be within, to be myself, to be comfortable in my own skin. And then when we learn how to apply those 5 A's to ourselves, then we can give them to others because you're like, oh, I know what this is. I've experienced it in my body. I've practiced it. And now I can offer that to others, right? So that is something that we learn how to do. A lot of us didn't get these things in childhood. And so there's a very intimate way that I take the 5 A's and show you how to apply it to that hurt inner child or unruly child that exists within to give them proper comfort, support, discipline, what have you, because that subconscious runs everything from the background. I like to say it's like the great Oz behind the curtain, right? Who's really running the show? So your subconscious is. So I show you how to get access to that and tools to be able to also become aware of your emotions, express your needs, which again is part of a healthy relationship. Um, a lot of times people aren't aware of their needs. They're not even aware of their emotions. They're not even aware of like their heartbeat. And so I, through a gradual process, show people how to become aware of those subtle energies that exist within them all the time. It's just a lot of times we're just tuned out from it. So again, I am like, I'm a cheerleader for you. I'm your biggest like advocate before you become your own. Then once your own, like, of course, like that's what I want. But I am in the business and in on the spiritual path of helping people, again, activate your own inner healer. That's the title of the retreat. That's the title of this podcast. I might have a little subtitle to it as well. But having tools and then knowing when to use them, like that is like the proper, like if you had medicine on the shelf and you had like 50 medicines, you're like, oh, I have the medicine. Great. Okay, but you might have a certain ailment that requires a particular medicine, not just one particular medicine, but a particular dosage of the medicine. Maybe you combine some of the medicines, like I do with my homeopathy, my curio cabinet. You can't see it because it's off screen, but When people have different ailments and deficiencies, I can tell like selenium deficiency in here, calcium fluoride deficiency in here. I can tell if you have a malnourishment line. I can tell if you have calcium um, carbonate uh, deficiencies from your eyelids. I can tell if you, I'm just like reading my own face now, but potassium arsenite, sodium chloride. So different deficiencies you have in the face, then I would not prescribe, I would recommend certain homeopathic remedies based on that, right? So with emotional work and the sort of inner spiritual work, we can have certain tools that we use at certain times depending on what we're dealing with and also depending on our emotional bandwidth. So sometimes you might not have the emotional bandwidth to do a bunch of clear formulas, but you might have the emotional bandwidth to do a neurovascular hold, aka mudra, and cup the back of your cranium, cup your prefrontal cortex, and take a few deep breaths, right? So different times call for different measures. So that's another thing that I teach. I teach the ABCs of adulting, which is so A, B, C. So acronyms are great. Ask, right? So ask in alignment with Don Miguel Ruiz's don't make assumptions, like ask. You have a voice, use it. Don't make assumptions, because I can almost guarantee that the assumptions are not going to be correct a lot of times, especially if it's giving you a negative feeling. I always like to assume people have positive intent. B is boundaries. Boundaries, super important because, like, a lot of times we have these unspoken, completely unbroadcasted boundaries, and then, oh my gosh, they're not respecting my boundaries. I'm sorry, what boundaries are you talking about? You didn't make them known? I mean, beyond like common sense, like I don't have to wear a shirt that says, please don't punch me in the face. It's not nice. Most people know that that wouldn't be nice. Again, if I throw a karate uniform on, then it's a whole different story, right? Please punch me in the face. It is enjoyable. No, I'm just kidding. So boundaries are something that we speak. They're clear, they're concise, they're simple, and then we also have consequence to them. So boundaries are something important as adults that we express, because otherwise people do make assumptions, because a lot of times they don't have tools. But also if we have invisible boundaries and people cross them, a lot of times we become resentful. So it's important to vocalize these things so that people don't cross our invisible boundaries. It's like if you touched a spot in the sand when you were out in a public beach and you're like, that is my spot, nobody touched that, and then you sat there and watched a bunch of people walk over it. It's kind of the same with emotional boundaries. Everyone grows up in a different culture within a culture, right? Maybe they're from this country. Okay, cool. They might be from a different state. All right, they're from a different county. They're from a different, economic class. They're from a different like culture within the family. So again, we all have different experiences, and so making certain things known, especially if you notice, they probably don't know to wipe their feet before they come in, or oh, in my house we take off our shoes. You must not have done that growing up. Doesn't mean they're wrong, doesn't mean it's bad, it's just a different culture. So setting boundaries and making things known is important, and we never want to use it to manipulate. It's just to protect our emotional safeness, our emotional autonomy. The last one is communication. So being able to communicate what you're feeling, being able to communicate your inner universe. These things are really important because otherwise it's very difficult to connect with somebody who is completely closed off, if you haven't noticed. So I'm pretty open book. I'm very vulnerable, and a lot of people say, yeah, you're very relatable, because I show you my humanness. If I just tucked it in my back pocket, I'm wearing some jeans today, which is fun, then you might not be able to connect with me, because you'd be like, who is Erin, really? So I'm associated with Thrive. I have a nose ring, and I'm wearing like a Ardhanarishwara shirt. I'm like Hindu stuff. But you really get to know me in my heart when I open up to you and I communicate what I'm feeling. And if there's something that bothers me, I can express it, hopefully in a mature way without taking things too personally, right? So again, ABCs of adulting. And then there's three sort of navigating group dynamics that I talked about actually last podcast that I teach in my course too. And I tie it all together with universal truths. It's very yummy, very fun. So the first one is imperviousness. So it is important as an adult to note that everyone's having their own experience, and to not take things personally. So again, we had that Don Miguel Ruiz coming back with the 4 agreements. Don't take things personally. Don't make assumptions. Be impeccable with your word. Always do your best. The 4 things. So if you are taking things personally, then you're going to make it about you. It's an ego construct. People are living their lives. They're trying their best, and sometimes their best might not fall in alignment with what you think it should be. And it's really important to be able to recognize that. The next thing is Aini. Aini is mutual reciprocation. So this is an important aspect of group dynamics because if we don't have this sort of uh, reciprocation that we have within a group, a lot of times there could be resentfulness, there can be, just certain details that we miss about connecting with somebody. So Aini is very important. And then the last one is abeyance. Abeyance is when, so I teach about needs, I teach about decoding your needs with your emotions, and then I teach you that sometimes your needs are not the number one priority when you're in a group. Okay, your needs are important, they should get met, and you can certainly meet them, but you might have to hit the pause button. And that is something that is sort of like the pendulum goes, like, I have no needs, so I have all the needs, and then to like, okay, I have needs, but everybody else does too. And I need to be aware of that, and I need to be fair minded. And it sort of falls in with like navigating group dynamics of like, I need, like, okay, reciprocation, like you took your turn, now I'm going to take my turn. Like, I would like a turn as well, but I can see you also want a turn. It's not the world does not revolve around us, right? So this allows us to be a more pleasant person to be around. This allows us to be able to navigate group dynamics a lot more skillfully. So all of this is just a little taste of what I'm offering at my Activate Your Inner Healer, Heal Your Activator Inner, Activate Your Inner Healer from January 16th to the 20th. It is the only local retreat that I'm doing as of now. If you're more in alignment with, I want to go overseas, I am doing a retreat in Thailand. We have 3 spots left for that. So that's November 4th through the 15th. So if you're interested in that, you can go to thriveyogafit.com. You can also go to erincoach.com. We recently updated it. And you can also reach out to me, Erin at erincoach.com. So this is a very packed, full podcast. I hope that you enjoy. Have a great week and namaste.